Uh, Respected Joint Secretary Sarika Roy Madam, respected Nachiketa Raut Sir, respected Dr. Ashraf Sir and dear colleagues, it is indeed a happy moment for CRC Kozhikode to welcome the distinguished dignitaries and fellow professionals to the inaugural session of the national level weekly webinar series of 5 weeks on early intervention in disabilities organized by CRC Kozhikode. We embarked upon this initiative, drawing inspiration from the respected Joint Secretary Tarika Roy Madam's direction to create resource material pool in e-format on early intervention for EICs. At this juncture, where selected national institutes and CRCs under DEPWD are gearing up for the launch of early intervention centers across the country, as envisaged by our respected Madam, these efforts will add on to the academic repertoire of EICs. We are privileged to have such an enriched panel of resource persons who undoubtedly are accomplished academicians of national and international repute in their respective domains. The crux of disability prevention lies in early identification and intervention, for which both rehabilitation sector as well as the medical sector need to act in tandem with utmost vigilance. Along with regular rehabilitational interventions, accurate diagnosis and prompt medical management assumes much significance in early intervention.
അല്ലല്ല
We know
അച്ഛൻ
that missing out
ഓഫ്
a
ചെയ്തോ.
single thyroid screening can result in non-detection of congenital hypothyroidism, which can lead to permanent intellectual disability. Similarly, the prompt identification of hearing loss and its interventions, including cochlear implantation, is in indicated cases will prevent permanent hearing impairment. Likewise, early screening for common metabolic and genetic disorders are also very important in limiting the extent of disabilities. Now that hemoglobinopathies and sickle cell disease are under the purview of RPWD Act 2016, a thorough understanding of these conditions and its early interventional aspects is imperative for rehabilitation professionals as well, as all neurodevelopmental disorders are to be identified and intervened within the critical period of neuronal plasticity of the developing brain. To prevent disabilities, it is essential for all rehabilitation professionals in early intervention sector, especially to have a good insight into the various neurodevelopmental disorders and its identification. Hence, special care was taken to incorporate such specific sessions being dealt by eminent medical personalities in this webinar series. This will further strengthen the rehabilitation arena and equip rehabilitation professionals. Further, topics on parenting, sibling issues, the psychological and psychiatric implications, and rehabilitation measures are also covered in this webinar series. It is indeed our proud privilege to welcome our Joint Secretary Sarika Roy Madam for this inaugural function. We are indebted beyond words to our respected Madam for being kind enough to readily accept the humble request for inauguration from a small institution like CRC for a humble initiative like this. This gesture of benevolent encouragement, despite her hectic schedule, in itself is the highest inspiration. Respected Madam, your vision is the guiding force for us all in EICs. Whatever be the topic, be it national human rights issues of persons with disabilities or the drawings of a wall decor for an EIC room, the clarity and passion with which your good self enlighten us is inspiring. Your meticulous attention to details, like correcting even the shade of a color slightly to make it more pediatric friendly and visually appealing, was enlightening to us, Madam. Respected Madam, on behalf of CRC Kozhikode and NIPMED Chennai, I most respectfully welcome you to this function, Madam. Sri Nachiketa Raut, sir, Director NIPMED Chennai, who is presiding over this function, is the true guiding spirit of CRCK. An able administrator and an astute academician, Nachiketa sir is always there with CRCK in the mentor role, encouraging us in all such endeavors we embark upon. An ever positive gentleman, with all due respect, we welcome you, sir, to this august function. Our resource person, Dr. T.P. Ashraf, Professor of Pediatrics, Medical College, Kozhikode, is a renowned pediatrician of Kerala. The professorship is just one feather in his colorful cap. He is also the project head of the Regional Autism Center, Kerala, and member Board of Studies, Medicine, University of Calicut. He also is the state president, adolescent chapter of Indian Academy of Pediatrics, and the president of IIP Kozhikode District. Formerly, he was the project director of State Initiative on Disabilities and executive director of Kerala Social Security Mission, which implemented the internationally acclaimed cochlear implantation project, Shruti Tarangam, which marked the dawn of a new era in the history of disabilities in Kerala. I had the good fortune to work under him as its regional director at that time, and I'm really proud of having got such an opportunity. Incidentally, he is in the limelight of a national recognition as he has been conferred the prestigious fellowship of IAP. I take this opportunity to congratulate you, sir. Yet another happy thing is that the IAP under his leadership has officially assured collaborative activities with EIC of CRC Kozhikode. On behalf of CRCK and DEPWD, I welcome you, sir, to this program.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I also welcome all the rest of the distinguished resource persons for the forthcoming weeks, though some of them are not physically present now in this webinar. Also, I welcome all the senior faculties and colleagues from all other NIs and CRCs, other professionals, students, all staff of CRCK, and other friends who are attending this webinar. I now humbly request Sri Nachiketa Raut's Director NIPMET to deliver his presidential address. Thank you.
So thankful. So thankful to you, Dr. Roshan, and I am absolutely humbled by the presence of our beloved Joint Secretary, Madam Tarikul Roy, Madam. She has been so passionate about it, and I think passion is the only thing which is required for early intervention. Early intervention, that the topic is very apt. The reason is that we say that a mechanism is at its optimal efficiency if it makes maximum impact with minimum fuel and creating out least amount of noise. So if we look at early intervention, then Krishna one in 15th chapter, the first slok says that the human body is like an inverted tree with the roots towards the head. So which means that if you if you want to damage or build up a tree, actually it's the roots which should be taken up. And this is very much true for the neuronal cells which are there. The reason is that those are the 24/7 active cells, consume out the maximum energy and have the shortest critical period. If an impact is to be brought in, then probably those neuronal cells needs to be reprogrammed out or redone out in a way in that particular critical period with the appropriate kind of stimuli, so that the rest of the body follows it. So probably early intervention is the only way out for the maximum empowerment of persons with disabilities. We work with them very early. We take advantage of the critical age. We do the right kind of stimuli, and we get the best results with minimum amount of energy. One more thing which I would like to add up is the concept of the critical age. I am a speech language pathologist and radiologist by profession. In the 50,000 years of evolution of the human being, we started out from this particular Neanderthal men and now Cro-Magnons, Homo sapiens like this, 50,000 years from Africa. The thing which has actually come up last in the line of evolution is the capability to speak out. You see, our ears cannot process out this rapid any other auditory stimuli the way they do it for speech. We have a specific area which is there. So this being the last skill to develop out would be having the shortest critical age. And this critical age begins out somewhere around 5th month of gestation. 5th month of gestation, and it peaks around 6 months of chronological age. When a child is just going on its stomach, it's a supine to prone position. So it peaks up and then it goes down slowly. And it is this particular speech and language skills on which you have the reading writing skills. Communication, cognition, and the symbolic processing all happens out. That's a very short critical age. So even if we are identifying our children at 1 month of age, 1, 3, 6 is the rule of thumb nowadays. So even if we are identifying our children at 1 month of age, actually we have lost out 5 months. 5th month, 6th month, 7th month, 8th month, and 9th month of gestation. So for a speech language pathologist and audiologist, even if you are the earliest, you are late by 5 months. So it is that short for us. And by 1.5 years of age, fundamental changes in the auditory nerve reorganizations, it all starts happening out. And then there is a central auditory pathway where reorganizations would be happening out, which means that no matter what input you given, it cannot be processed out further. Very important. Some 20 years ago, I was seeing this particular documentary in Discovery Channel where they were experimenting on the fawn of deer. The child of a cow is known as a calf, human is known as a baby, and child of a deer is known as a fawn. So what they were trying to do is that the moment the child was born, they were seeing that it stumbled out on all four of its legs and started running behind the mother. It took all of the animals. So what they were trying to do is that as the fawn is born, they were trying to restrict the fawn for a particular period of time. It was in minutes, and then they were releasing out the child. They saw that if that particular fawn is restricted out for the first few minutes, for its entire life, it cannot walk out or run in the way others deer do, which means to learn out how to walk, the critical age is very short. If the child is not exposed to the right kind of stimuli in that particular period of time, then probably it will not happen. The skill will not be acquired out the way it has to be acquired out in the later part of the life. It's that important. And with these few lines, I wish Dr. Roshan Bijli and the team, good luck that they have taken up such an important topic, and they are deliberating upon it for 5 consecutive period of time. And I thank the resource persons who would be coming in for all these days, especially for today, Dr. Ashraf, professor in pediatrics, the right kind of person. And I could see the way sir was saying yes to certain things, and the spark in his eyes, probably sir is relating out to the entire thing in a very good way. I thank all of them for coming in here, and thank you one and all. No more the story of Abhimanyu or Astavakar is a myth, because we know by the 5th month of gestation we can hear mothers sing out a particular type of a rhyme when the child is born, and when the child is distressed. If they sing the same kind of rhyme which they had sung when the child was in the womb, the child would be quietened. That means the child was hearing the mother. We very much know that the child recognizes the prosody of the mother, or the rhythm of the speech of the mother. That's why once the mother holds the baby and says something, the child is quiet. That's why we call that as a mother tongue. It's that important. Thank you one and all for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Roshan. Thank you, Tarika ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Ashraf. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nachiketa sir, for those kind words and for those words of wisdom for your presidential address, sir. Now, I most respectfully, humbly welcome our respected Joint Secretary, Tarika Roy, Madam, to deliver the inaugural address. Madam, please, Madam.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bijli, Dr. Nachiketa Raut, and Dr. Ashraf, our resource person, important resource person for our scientific session today. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, Madam, you are audible, Madam.
So, namaskar and a very good afternoon to even all the audience which has taken time out. I especially am thankful to them, because if we are deliberating today and our audience is not keyed in and clued in, then the whole purpose for which these seminars and webinars were actually designed would have been lost. So I must first and foremost thank the audience who's listening in this afternoon. So before I begin, I just do want to correct Dr. Bijli, because firstly, it's not a small institute. It's a huge institute, and it's a huge effort. It's not a humble effort that you have embarked upon by doing these series of 5 seminars. I sincerely mean it. And I think these 2 words that you use, small and humble, will stand inverted the moment you start making changes in the lives of the people who enter and visit your early intervention centers. For that, you would have been the most important institution which was provided and which could make a difference in their respective lives. So you will be a world and a whole universe for them. So with that thought which is in my mind, and I'm sure it is in all of yours, I must say that while you're organizing it in Kerala is one state which is otherwise also better off in terms of early intervention and others at the state level. So I would request you to also take the lead for spreading the message, taking on help from not only the people in the fraternity that you have around you, dealing with the medical from the medical side, from the rehab side, from the caregiver side, and from the entire holistic perspective, and spreading it to the other states and other centers. That is the need of the hour. So I would therefore first and foremost express the department's gratitude and appreciation for all the national institutes and the CRCs, composite regional centers across India, which have been chosen for the phase 1 of this project of the early intervention centers. I say this because, frankly, while you have used very nice words of madam's attention to detail and things like that, I know what you're meaning, that I was giving you very less time to do it. And these centers, for those who don't know, would have been up by March 2020 or latest April 2020, had unfortunately the global pandemic not hit the world. And even though now many of the centers are virtually ready to start off any day, we are only constrained because there is this directive that we should not have children coming out in view of the infectious virus around. And so we are not beginning, and we want to look for the, a little ebbing in the pandemic, because many of our national institutes were also affected and there were many cases of COVID. So we don't want that these should begin and, God forbid, some cases of infection spread from these, which would be highly unfortunate for a initiative as being taken as this. So it's in the face of being cautious. While you are ready, I know most of them are ready, but we are taking some more time to take this, to launch them. So Kozhikode is a late entrant to the bandwagon of the, so therefore I think he's had less of my wrath of chasing and finding out. And but I'm glad, and I must express my appreciation for you having caught on very well and caught on very fast. And I'm sure with the help that you have of all the professional and the state support, you will be leading in this initiative. I have no doubts about it. As far as the, for the whole, I would like to mention about, even though you have sort of given a background, I will want to mention for the sake of our audience here, and that, the whole idea why this was set up and the need was felt, because there is a gap, as you know. I don't have to tell this audience of the importance of 0 to 6 years, which has been very well elucidated even through mythological references by Nachiketa, which he is very good at. So I must mention that since this is an established fact that these are critical years in the development of a child, and somehow the gap lies because we are not able to identify. Because Dr. Ashraf, as you said, is a pediatrician, he would know that there is this huge need for tapping and catching on to these cases as early as possible, as even Nachiketa was mentioning in his talk. Each day could make a difference, so to say. So, so therefore, there was a need felt that we need to create these centers. Now, how to create these centers? If one is truly honest, then it should be there in each part of the country, everywhere, so that every parent who experiences can immediately take their child for such therapeutic interventions or care as might be required. However, seeing the practicality of it, and in order to have the first-hand experience, we banked upon our own national institutes as well as our composite regional centers. Now, while the composite regional centers are sort of more holistic in terms of the services they provide, our national institutes were not. Nachiketa is at NIPMED, so he is better placed than the other national institutes, because all other national institutes are mostly single disability focused, and therefore they do not have, for long years have been, so therefore they do not have that kind of professional sort of wherewithal to be able to deal with cross disabilities which are referred there. And the challenge therefore was that it's not that we had national institutes so it was easy to set up. It is still a challenge that there was that we needed to also have a huge learning curve of our professionals and of our officials in our national institutes also to rise to the occasion and come up as leading institutions which can provide this care and be as an example and as a pilot to others to follow. So given this huge responsibility, I think the national institutes, some with their own motivation and some with my not giving them any opportunity, they have risen to the occasion and they have very readily agreed to come forward. And let me explain this small thing. You can understand if it's a national institute, they have their own their infrastructure laid out for years on end. And now we came up with this idea that if you have to have a center, and I say this, I'm taking this opportunity to say it because I find that 2 out of your series of 5 lectures, you're also devoting to the parental and the sibling approach, which is very nice. You have portions not just on the medical model, but also you have psychologists and the philosophical aspects being dealt with in this webinar. So I appreciate the organizers for that too. And it sort of completes the circle. So I think that similarly, the reason why the infrastructure in the national institutes had to be restructured, which took a time, was because while people were very placed in their own settings, in their own corridors, so much so that so many times we feel, oh, you changed my chair. You also know your chair is changed and you're not so comfortable in case it's changed. So here we were talking of changing corridors and changing sections because we wanted the entire early intervention center to come across as a contiguous single unit. This was the reference point, that it should be all under one roof. A person who comes with one disability and has to be checked, with a child with a developmental delay or possible developmental delay, they should not be harassed to walk from one corridor to the other or from one building to the other. The idea was that when they come in, they should walk through a contiguous unit, get all the required therapies and interventions as the case may be, if there were multiple disabilities, or getting any checkups done in the same place. So this would lessen the burden of the parents who are already harassed by being blessed with one such child. And also the fact that I also ensured that, to the extent possible, given the infrastructural constraints, that there should have a separate entrance to the building. The reason being that let them not see let them have or not be burdened with visuals which might be disturbing if they were to encounter adult cases. So let them feel less burdened, at least to the extent that we can help them. So given that approach, our national institutes as well as the composite regional centers had to reorient their setting up of this, which is a great, I think it's a huge challenge already overcome. Then we said that when these parents come up, they should also have given the due attention, that they're not only sensitized and they want to willingly bring their child and they don't want to run away. So it was not that they should come here and get so harassed and run away. Rather, they should feel that the environment is so pleasing, the attention to detail and the care being given to their child and the difference being made in the child's life is so visible that they would want to get their child. So a shift from going away, firstly providing the service, then from wanting to run away from one such institution if they're not looked after, to one where they want to bring it. This leads me to the question, as the 3 of these sessions are on the medical model, that in the medical model, what happens is you might go for, you get your medicine, or you get your therapy, or even you get your, some surgery as the case may be. But that's maybe 1 time, 2 times. But this is a case where you might need regular and constant therapeutic interventions or rehabilitative care, for which it means you need to keep on coming. So for the parents to get this concept and to willingly want to bring their child, this should be inviting, very well laid out aesthetically, as well as accessible environments, which provide, once they come there, our professionals will take care. We had no sort of doubts in the fact that they would be taken up, and definitely once a child is getting therapy, there would be changes and the results would be there for all to see. But the mantra is that they have to keep coming. And that is what was our focus when we were trying to create such centers. And this series, since I don't want to eat into the time of Dr. Ashraf, and I do want to hear him, and which would be more valuable, and is that this whole series which I mentioned in the Disability Week, that they should be organized and are being now done by all national institutes. I must say that this was only done because there has to be awareness generation. What is missing in this sector is that people don't know. So even if we create a center, and that's why I was specifically thanking the people who are listening in, and I would urge them also and request them also to spread the message that the whole idea is reach out, let people know facilities are like this are being created, and this is just the beginning or the tip of the iceberg, as it were, because we want to take it to every district eventually. And the whole idea for the part that I mentioned about the mantra of regular this thing is that the ideal scenario would be when a medical college or a DEIC of the health authorities and the intervention center through a DDRC or through whatever is contiguously located together, so that if a case is found or a caseload is found, immediately the developmental pediatrician can refer the case to the or through the DEIC can refer the case to DDRC, where the rehab worker can do. And I say this, and I urge this model to be replicated everywhere, and we'll see when the DDRCs come up and take on this as a whole national project, is that the resources are too limited in this sector. The professionals are limited, and the demand is huge. We are a nation of several billions, and if each child has to be diagnosed, and if each child therefore has to be given the required therapy, which is also the responsibility and mandated under the Rights of Persons with Disability Act, then the only way forward is to have them enclose this thing. You go to the doctor, get yourself, and doctor also feels confident that I can refer him to this rehab specialist who will take care of the caseload and bring down the disability burden, which will help. And for this, the important portion of coming back to the 2 lectures that you have on parents, because parents then will become the main resource persons for us. They are the people who have to learn the techniques which are being taught at the centers, especially like COVID has broken out now. Then what if the outbreak hadn't happened and the parents could come there, it was still okay. But what do you do? Now they're stuck. So either there are online classes, or they have to take on the role and help in this larger thing across for a community outreach for it. So as I said that, there is just so much to be said in this, but there is more importantly so much to be heard and learned for me as well. So I would be telling my office to have me join in most of these lectures if time permitted, and I would definitely like to hear. And I have overstepped by 2 minutes my time allotted. So I look forward to hearing you, Dr. Ashraf, and for guiding us all. And I would request that all the people who are listening in who are resource persons to please come forward proactively and give suggestions of how this can be done better. There are so many things that have been done for a common software between all the 14 centers, so that any caseload coming, and if somebody doesn't know the it's a cross disability sector, if somebody doesn't know, you can refer the case elsewhere and get the input from that national institute or that CRP. Anybody can pitch in. So we are trying to learn together, and this exercise also, and I hope other national institutes have also joined in for listening to this session. Before I end, I must mention that as we talk, there is also another seminar being organized by our national institutes in Delhi, which is conventionally a national institute on locomotors, as you might all know, the IPH. Now, they are hosting a webinar which is on speech and hearing. Now, this is the beauty of the Early Intervention Center. It wouldn't have been thought of if these early intervention centers as cross disability were not there in locomotor. They would have conventionally gone on with their usual. So this is a huge learning curve for all of us. Whatever is spoken on in one webinar gets, even if one idea is captured, it's enough to make a change in, say, one person's life, So I wish all success to this webinar. I will try and join in Dr. Bijli wherever I can of these 5. And I look forward to hearing from you, Dr. Ashraf. Thank you so much for giving this support and encouragement to our centers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam, for accepting our humble request and sparing your valuable time for this inaugural speech. And the correction which your good self made with regard to those terms of small and humble, I do imbibe the spirit of the correction, ma'am. And as always, ma'am, with utmost clarity of vision, you have mentioned here the philosophy of EICs. So it is very clear to, as we know, all of them are professionals in the rehab section. Madam, nearly 160 participants are there. And, we are so happy for that. And I'll just take a single minute to mention the rest of the sessions for the sake of the participants, ma'am. Next week, 22nd December, the topic is an overview of neurodevelopmental disorders in children, early identification and early intervention by Dr. P. Krishnakumar. He is the director of the Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Government of Kerala, and he is a renowned pediatrician, a pediatric psychiatrist in the country even. So he'll be dealing with the neurodevelopmental disorders. Then the third session is on 29th December 2 to 3 p.m. And the topic is role of parents in identification of early childhood disability. And the topic is dealt by Dr. Rasina Padmam. She is the former director and professor of School of Behavioral Sciences and a well-known media person as well. And she writes, is a person of an academician of international repute. And also she is there in the Civil Service Selection Committee, a multifaceted personality. Madam will be dealing with the role of parents. And on 7th January 2021, Dr. Smita, who is the Assistant Professor of Psychiatry, and she's also in charge of the Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Clinic of Government Medical College of Kozhikode. So she will be specifically taking session on the topic, removing the roadblocks, managing the inner conflicts and psychological issues of parents and siblings. So that is the fourth session. And the fifth session on 15th January 2 to 3 p.m. It's by Dr. Ramdas Panandatil. He's a psychiatrist at UK, East London NHS Foundation Trust, UK. He's a voracious reader and a well-known writer. He writes a lot of articles in international journals as well. Psychiatrist Dr. Ramdas will be dealing on the childhood disability, some philosophical and psychological considerations. That is on 15th January 2 to 3 p.m. So this is just for the information of the participants, ma'am. So with your kind permission, now I invite Dr. T.P. Ashraf, sir, for the scientific session. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Roshan. So we all know the infant mortality rate is in a decreasing trend in India, in every state. During our MBBS student days, it was 120 per 1,000 live births. We all know the infant mortality rate is the most important indicator for a socio-economic development of any country. That is the significance of the infant mortality rate. Now it is in decreasing trend. It was around 120 per 1,000 live births in 1980s. But it comes to 30 in India now. Next slide, next slide. So it is in a decreasing trend in every state in India. The All India average is now 30.9. In Kerala, it comes to a single digit of 7. In even big states like UP and Madhya Pradesh, it is 48 or 43. Everywhere it is decreasing. Infant mortality rate means the number of children died during the first year of life out of 1,000 live births occurring in that year. So it is decreasing. The second, next slide, next slide. How we achieved this? Many factors has contributed to decrease in the infant mortality rate. The expertise of the medical and paramedical and other staffs. And the most important thing is awareness of the medical, paramedical and even public about the management of several diseases. For example, previously the #1 killer in childhood was the diarrheal disorders. But the widespread use of sugar salt solution or ORS or using boiled water has decreased the incidence of waterborne disease like diarrhea. So as Madam mentioned in the beginning, the awareness across the population, awareness among the professionals, awareness among the public also contributed for the decrease in the infant mortality rate. And of course, sanitation, safe drinking water, immunization program. Department of Social Justice has played a very good role in immunization. In Kerala, when the Anganwadis, ICDS was established in 1975, one of the main thrust of Anganwadis and ICDS was the immunization area. Nutrition, another pillar for the ICDS activities. Poverty alleviation program, including Mahatma Gandhi Narega program. And next slide, please. The infrastructure, previous one, please. Infrastructure development. There is especially in the North India, there is a huge gap between the rural and urban population. So the connectivity, the development of the infrastructure, accessibility to health facilities, quality services, technology, and most importantly, the political will also. All this contributed for the decrease in the infant mortality rate. So one of the facts about the infant mortality rate is the 50% of the infant mortality rate comprises by the neonatal mortality rate. So in India now, the average infant mortality rate is 30. 30 children are dying in a year. 30 children are dying out of 1,000 live births. But out of this 30, 15 of them dying in the first 28 days. That is called neonatal mortality. So half of the infant mortality is contributed by neonatal mortality. Why these newborns dies? Next slide, please. Newborns dies because of all these problems. Asphyxia, sepsis means infections, birth-related injuries, prematurity, low birth weight, and associated complications, metabolic disorders, congenital defects and malformations. Next. So all these are high risk for a disability. When the neonatal mortality decreases, there is a chance to survival of high-risk baby. They may be at a higher risk to develop various disabilities. That is the one of the important thing regarding the early detections. All these neonatal ICU survivors or high-risk babies may have cerebral palsy or other neurodevelopmental disorders, congenital anomalies, hearing impairment and deafness, visual impairment, chronic diseases, learning disabilities of various types, multiple disabilities. So NICU survey psychosocial problems, NICU or PICU survivors are at a higher risk to develop disability. That is the importance of the early detection. The directors are already mentioned about the early detection. Who will detect? Mother can detect early. If we counsel the mother of a high-risk baby properly, she will report to us the early symptoms. A medical person can detect early. A paramedical person can detect early. A rehabilitation professional can detect early. A trained Anganwadi teacher can detect early. A trained ASHA worker can detect early. So the community level training for the early detection is also important in a populous country like us. So why we should detect them early? Sir already mentioned about the growth of the brain. In the intrauterine life, it grows from 0 to 35 centimeters. Suppose you are taking the head circumference of a newborn baby, at an average, it will come to the 34 centimeter or 35 centimeter. And at the age of 1 year, it becomes 45 centimeter or 46 centimeter. At the age of 2 years, it becomes 48. 3 year, 49. 4 year, 50. Rest of the life, 50 to 53. So the more rapid growth of brain occurring in the first year of the life. So, as sir mentioned in the beginning, every human being is born with an immature brain. The most of the maturity occurs in the initial years of the life. first 2 years of the life. The madam also mentioned about the importance of the up to 0 to 3 years as well as the 3 to 6 years. So there is a chance to develop new synapses and neuronal growths if we give an early stimulation and early intervention during the early years of life. That is the importance of the early detection. If we detect it early and intervene it with early, we can limit the disability. Suppose, as Roshan mentioned in the beginning, hypothyroid, a baby born with hypothyroidism, if we detect it in the first month of life itself and treat it properly, we can prevent the intellectual disability. So that is the importance of early detection. Then how we will do an early detection? These are the 3 important strategies for the early detection of the neurodevelopmental disabilities. One is adhere to high risk concept. Who are at high risk? We already mentioned. Any NICU survivor, a baby born with a low birth weight, a preterm baby, a baby developed meningitis or sepsis in the neonatal period, a baby born with a congenital malformation, all are at a high risk for the development of disability. That is the high risk concept. Second is developmental screening in well baby clinic and high risk baby follow-up clinics. We are all talking about the immunization. We are giving immunization card to every baby, but we are not giving a card which mentions the development of the baby. Indirectly, if we included a developmental assessment chart in the immunization card, it may be used as an education tool to the mother also. So mother is, we pediatrician always say, the mother is the best therapist. So she is the best early detector also. If the mother is properly counseled, if the mother is properly educated in a case of a high-risk newborn, she will report us early if any symptom or sign suggestive of neurodevelopmental disability is there. So developmental screening, it's an important tool for the early detection, and most important tool for the early detections are early markers of the neurodevelopmental disabilities. Early marker means any sign or symptom which make us or make mother to suspect a neurodevelopmental problem in children. We will come to that later in detail. So regarding the high-risk babies, all these factors make a newborn baby at a higher risk for neurodevelopmental disabilities. Suppose the mother is having an intrauterine infection like rubella or a cytomegalo. Now the entire nation, MR vaccination is given. It is to prevent, it is a vaccine for the next generation, rubella vaccination. If the all girl childs are vaccinated with rubella, we can prevent congenital rubella syndrome. Congenital rubella syndrome means it can lead to multiple disabilities to the child. Cataract, sensory neural deafness, congenital heart disease, intellectual disability, any sort of disability. So intrauterine infection, iron deficiency. Suppose mother is having a hypertension, that may lead to IUGR, that means low birth weight baby. All the low birth weight babies are at a higher risk for the neurodevelopmental disabilities. Diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus in the mother is a condition in which baby will have a large weight, but his head size will be small. That is called microcephaly, small head, neurodevelopmental problem. So all these antenatal factors make the child to make the newborn to get at a higher risk for the neurodevelopmental disabilities. The perinatal factors are also given there. Birth asphyxia, prematurity, neonatal jaundice, severe neonatal jaundice, pneumonia or meningitis, severe infections in the newborn. The postnatal factors like convulsion, birth injuries, head injuries, hypoglycemia, all these things. So suppose the baby under your follow-up is having any of this risk factor, we should put that baby under a special follow-up rather than a well baby, rather than a baby without such risk factors. Then The second version next. Then the most important tool for the developmental screening is one of the simple tool developed by the Child Development Center Trivandrum is Trivandrum Developmental Screening, which can be easily done by any trained person. There is not, a doctor is not required, even a staff nurse is not required, any Anganwadi worker, any JPHN, any ASHA worker can be trained to administer Trivandrum Development Scale, which is a very good tool to detect, to screen developmental, neurodevelopmental disabilities. Next slide. It is a screening tool developed by CDC Kerala. It is a simple tool. There are 2 age groups, 0 to 3 with the 27 items and 3 to 6 years with 24 items. The time required to screen a baby is only 5 to 10 minutes. No specific kit is required. Only a pencil, a ring, and a bell is required. It requires minimal training. Our Anganwadi workers or ASHA workers or the attender in the immunization clinic all can be trained to administer Trivandrum Development Scale. Next slide, please, Tosha. Next slide. This is a Trivandrum Developmental Scale. In this, in the x-axis, 1, 2, 3, age is mentioned, and these bars are different development. What you will do, you take a pen or pencil. Next click, just next click. You keep that pencil against the age. Here it is 3 months. So a 3-month-old child should develop social smile. The developmental milestones which is mentioned in the left side of that age bar. Suppose the child is 6 months. Please next slide, next click. It is 12 months, 1-year-old child. 1-year-old child should develop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This 9 of the developmental milestones, which can be checked by anybody. Very simple to administer. Even an Anganwadi worker or a attender can be trained for that. So it is a very good tool to detect developmental problem at an early age, from 3 months or from 2 months onwards. If suppose in Trivandrum Developmental Scale, the child is not acquiring the developmental milestones on the left side of your age bar, you should not say the mother, your child is having development delay. It is only a screening test. That means that baby requires a detailed evaluation. You can send, Anganwadi worker can send, or ASHA worker can send that baby to the nearest doctor or a therapist or a CRC or a district early intervention center where all the therapist is available. But that is the community level. This can be used as a community level tool to diagnose. It can be even used in the hospital settings, but being a very simple scale, it can be used even in the community setting. Then next slide. Next. Then we all know the language delay. The first scale is regarding to the more of a motor and social development. The language problem. We all know the newborns learns to speak by 8 months or 10 months. But he is hearing all the things from the birth onwards. But it will take 8 to 10 months to speak. So speak is acquired by the comprehension and formulation of the experiences by the baby. Now he is able to express it as a written speech or a spoken speech. So speech is having a receptive component as well as the expressive component. In most of the neurodevelopmental problem, if the speech defect is due to neurodevelopmental problem, the receptive component is more often affected. So we have to differentiate whether it is a receptive defect or an expressive defect whether there is any speech delay. For that, but also Trivandrum, Child Development Center Trivandrum developed a similar tool. Next slide. Next. It is also, the administration is simple like that of a first one, Trivandrum developmental scale. This is language evaluation scale of the Trivandrum. You can keep a pencil or a scale across the age, and the things not at the developmental milestones, not at left side of the age bar, should be acquired by that child. If it acquired by that child is normal. If there is not acquired by the child, there is a chance to have a language delay or language problem. That child needs detailed evaluation. That is the developmental screening test. And the most important thing is early markers or early clinical manifestation of neurodevelopmental disabilities. For a Trivandrum developmental scale, we can administer if the child is 3 months. But the early markers are signs or symptoms. Symptoms means the mother will tell my baby is having the following problem. Signs can be seen by the doctor or a therapist. There are a lot of general features, growth problems, abnormal motor performance or alteration in the muscle tone, abnormal posturing, reflex abnormalities and associated abnormalities, which will make us to think whether the child is having a neurodevelopmental disabilities or not. Next slide, please. We all know the most important activity of a child is cry. Usually, the babies will cry for some time. They will be calm in some time. They will actively sleep. They will actively play. But if a baby is too irritable or crying always, screaming always, or incessant cry, next slide. Excessive irritability or increased cry, poor sleep, all may be a feature of a neurodevelopmental disability. It is not a diagnostic feature, but we have to exclude the neurodevelopmental disabilities in this group. If the child is excessively irritable, crying, screaming always, the poor sleep, the exact vice versa is also important. If the baby is abnormally calm, we should suspect a neurodevelopmental problem. Because especially in the congenital hypothyroidism, the mother will say, my baby will sleep always. There is no problem with my baby. Suspect a neurodevelopmental. So, excessive irritability, excessive crying, as well as abnormally calm, both the extremes. The normal child is in between these two. We should rule out a neurodevelopmental problem. Then, next slide. The next important activity of the baby is feeding. If the baby is not properly feeding, poor sucking, if there is tongue retraction, if the baby is withdrawing the tongue to the mouth while attempting for breastfeeding, if there is a persistent bite, that means even after the breastfeeding, the mother will not be able to latch out the baby from the breast easily. He will bite the nipple in a persistent way. That is called tonic bite or a persistent bite. It suggests a hypertonia in the baby, maybe having a spastic cerebral palsy. So persistent bite or tonic bite, tongue thrust means if the baby is continuously pushing the nipple out of the mouth with the tongue. That is maybe a manifestation of the extrapyramidal cerebral palsy, tongue thrust, grimacing, drooling of the saliva continuously, persistent drooling, occasional drooling is normal for every baby. But the persistent drooling, frequent vomiting, all this feeding problem should suspect us whether the baby is having a neurodevelopmental problem or not. We have to exclude the neurodevelopmental problems if the baby is having any such symptoms. The next slide. Tosha, next slide. The growth problem also. Suppose we already mentioned the head circumference will be 35 centimeter at birth. But if it is 32 centimeter at birth, that is called a microcephaly. That maybe there is an increased chance to have a neurodevelopmental delay and all sort of the problem. And the correlation between these parameters. Suppose the head is little bit small, but the length is normal. That microcephaly may not lead to many neurodevelopmental issues. But if the length is also affected, the average birth length of a newborn baby is 50 centimeter. Suppose it is 42 centimeters. Birth weight is also affected. That means average birth weight is 3 kg, but it is term and 2 kg. The head circumference is also decreased. That maybe there is a high chance to have a lot of neurodevelopmental issues. So that is about the growth or anthropometric assessments. Then alteration in the muscle tone. That may be an early manifestation. Baby may have too stiffness or extreme floppiness while taking through the hands. If the baby is slipping through your hands, the muscle tone is very, very less. It may be a marker of hypertonic CP, as well as excessive stiffness of the baby. Suppose while trying to wear the diapers, the legs are kept in the crossed position. There is an increased tone in the adductor muscles of the thigh. Fixed postures, we all know the baby will open its hand by 3 to 4 months. Immediately after birth, every baby will keep the hands closed, but slowly by 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, he will open the hand. If he is persistently keeping the hand closed, especially by keeping the thumb across the palm, that may be an early manifestation of the hemiplegic CP or a quadriplegic. If it is in both hands, it may be a manifestation of the quadriplegic CP. These are some early manifestation of the neurodevelopmental problems in muscle tone. Then poor mobility. We all know the babies will make all sorts of movements. Suppose there is paucity of movement or asymmetry of movements. Usually babies will do the cyclic movements with upper hand, limb and lower limb, with legs and hands. But if it's moving one side but not moving the other side, the paucity of movements or asymmetry of movements, all these should make us to suspect a neurodevelopmental problem. Then next slide. Then one of the most important early marker is the early handedness of the baby. Usually a baby will develop handedness by 2.5 to 3 years. But any handedness before the age of 2 years is abnormal. Suppose a baby with a 9-month-old, suppose a mother with a 9-month-old baby coming to you and tell his baby is using right hand for all the purposes. That is an early acquisition of the handedness. That means there is some problem with his left hand. There may be a left hemiplegic CP. So that is the early acquisition of the handedness. Any acquisition of the handedness before 2 years is considered as abnormal. Various other postures. One posture I already mentioned, if the baby is keeping the thumb across the palm even after 3 months, definitely suggests a hemiplegic CP. Other fixed postures like walk and stand on tiptoes, W sitting, means of deformity, all these are early markers of the neurodevelopmental disabilities. Then next, if the baby is making all sort of uncoordinated movement, facial grimacing, tremor or reaching or triangle ataxia, all may consider as a early marker of a neurodevelopmental problem. Then next, the associated problem like visual problems, hearing problems, dysmorphology, which may be a manifestation of the various genetic or chromosomal abnormalities, small head, large head, constipation. Constipation may be an early manifestation of the neurodevelopmental problem. It is one of the common problem in the infancy. But don't think every child with constipation have a neurodevelopmental problem. But we have to evaluate and exclude such problem in any child with persistent constipation. Don't take in a vice versa. Every child with the constipation may not have neurodevelopmental problem. But any child with constipation, we have to exclude such problem. Then it may be manifested as a developmental delay, issues in development. Roshan, next slide. Delay means failure to achieve age-appropriate milestones for the corrected age of the individual. So, corrected age means in a preterm baby, we should do appropriate correction before assessing the development. Suppose the baby is delivered at 32 weeks, baby delivered 2 months, baby is preterm for 2 months. So for predicting corrected age, we should subtract 2 months from the chronological age. So if the chronological age of the baby is 6 months, if the baby is delivered at 32 weeks, we should, his corrected age is only 4 months. We have to subtract 2 months from the chronological age. I think the point is clear. In preterm baby, we should subtract a period equal to the prematurity from the chronological age to arrive at corrected age. And we should expect the development for the corrected age, not for the chronological age. So, regarding the developmental delay, next slide. Not only the neurological disorders, but some other causes also can lead to developmental delay. Suppose the baby is having a vitamin D deficiency and rickets. That baby may also have delay in the gross motor development. But correction vitamin D deficiency, he will become normal. It may not be a neurodevelopmental problem. So any child with developmental delay, we should exclude vitamin D deficiency like rickets as well as the severe iron deficiency before predicting that child is having a neurodevelopmental problem. Then, next slide. Next. These are some danger signs in the development. Suppose the social smile means now the baby is able to recognize his mother. Now the social smile means that now baby is able to recognize a human face. Then there is another smile called a smile of recognition. Usually by the age of 1 month, all babies will develop social smile. He will be able to recognize human face from other things. But by the age of 3 months, he will be able to recognize his mother's face from others' face. That is called smile of recognition. Suppose a baby is not developing social smile even after 3 months, it is a red sign. It's a warning sign. The child may have intellectual disability. Then no head control by 5 to 6 months, unable to sit alone by the age of 9 to 10 months, unable to transfer objects from one hand to other hand by 1 year. Usually by 7 months, by 28 weeks, the babies will transfer the objects from one hand to one hand. Even after 1 year, he's not doing that. Definitely, there is a development delay. Abnormal princess gasp by the age of 15 months, unable to walk alone by 18 months, failure to speak recognizable words by 2 years. These are some important aspects of the development to predict developmental delay. Then one point is very, very important. We already discussed every human being is delivered with an immature brain. It will take 1.5 to 2 years to cerebral cortex get matured. And it will take 3 to 7 years for the cerebellum to get matured. So, since the control of movement does not occur until late infancy, diagnosis may not be confirmed until after the 6 months. Suppose head control is now attained by 5 months. Don't tell the mother your baby is having a neurodevelopmental problem. Keep that baby under the follow-up. And after the follow-up, so persistently there is a delay, we can send that baby for the detailed evaluation. So another important point is, we already discussed that brain has enormous capacity to develop and to form new synapses especially in response to the early stimulation and early intervention. The immature brain, especially during the first 2 to 3 years of life, there is an enormous chance to develop again. There is an important role for the early stimulation and early intervention. For that, early detection is important. Next slide. And regarding one of the most important thing is regarding the management of the children with the suspected disabilities. Our prime aim should be to develop the skill. In this photograph, the child is saying, please help us to develop skills rather than trying to treat our ills. So definitely early intervention is a teamwork. The early detection can be done by even a single person, even an Anganwadi worker, even a doctor, even anybody concerned. But definitely intervention is a teamwork. Here we have to try to develop skills in that child. The treating epilepsy or treating associated comorbidities all are important, but our prime aim should be the development of the skill in that child. Then next slide. I already said it is a teamwork. The pediatrician has role, developmental therapist has role, physiotherapy, occupational therapist, audiologist, optometrist, psychologist, social worker, ENT surgeon, ophthalmologist, neurologist, and parents and family. Definitely it should be a teamwork. It should be discussed between all these. Next slide. And the take-home messages are, for the early detection, high-risk concept is important. We already discussed what is high risk. The look for early markers is important. The early markers may be a feeding difficulty, maybe a excessively crying child, maybe a manifestation of the altered tone. Keep the suspected babies under the regular follow-up. Don't tell the mother, you're at the initial phase, your baby is having such and such problem. Keep that baby under the follow-up. The brain has enormous capacity to develop. Train the mother how you give early stimulation. Then early detection and early intervention are the cardinal factors in disability limitation in children with CP and other neurodevelopmental problems. And early detection without early intervention is a mere waste of resource and time. Here, central government is implementing a lot of programs like RBSK. Under the RBSK, around 200 districts in India now having a district early intervention center. The CRCs are functioning well and developing well under the social justice department. Especially the CRC Calicut is also progressing rapidly, and they are going to shift to a new building. The Broad resource centers are there under the education department. Kerala government is implementing state initiative of disabilities, and many more facilities are there. So the awareness about this facility in the grassroots level, that is also the response. Making the grassroots level people aware about this facility is also a role for us, role of a doctor, role of a therapist. We have to spread the message across the grassroots level. Next slide. So this is a quote from Stephen Hawking. My house and my workplace have been made accessible for me. Computer experts have supported me with an assisted communication system and a speech synthesizer, which allow me to compose lectures and papers and to communicate with the different audiences. Next. But I realized that I am very lucky. In many ways, my success in theoretical physics has ensured that I am supported to live a worthwhile life. It is very clear that the majority of people, that line we should read repeatedly. It is very clear that the majority of people with disabilities in the world have an extremely difficult time with everyday survival, let alone productive employment and personal fulfillment. We are also all trying for that. for the personal fulfillment of any person with disabilities. So for that, the teamwork is important. The Indian Academy of Pediatrics is also very happy to associate with the CRC Kozhikode to do anything and everything in the sector. And as Roshan mentioned in the beginning, we were fortunate to implement a program in the Kerala, that is free cochlear implantation program. Around 600 children were operated in a period of 3 years. But the heroic, rather than the heroic surgery, the audio verbal therapy after the surgery for the 2 years made the program successful. Otherwise, when the cochlear implantation program was started in Andhra Pradesh under the Rajiv Gandhi Arogyasri, there was no facility for the follow-up of the children, no facility for the speech therapy or audio verbal therapy. So that program was not a successful program. But in Kerala, we ensured the free audio verbal rehabilitation for that 2 years, and 90 to 95% of operated children came to the normal life with a good speech and with a good hearing capacity. And this is a photograph of around 500 children assembled in a program at Calicut, who all of them went for the cochlear implantation and 2 years audio verbal rehabilitation. So the heroic measures may not helpful, or heroic measures will be helpful with the proper rehabilitation follow-up therapy. That is what most important. For the politician, the cochlear implant surgery may be an attractive slogan. But for the therapist, for the medical people, the rehabilitation after the surgery is more important. So the facility for that is important. After that program in Calicut Medical College, we started a audiological lab. In this program, all these children are implanted children. So they are meeting our health minister in an inaugural function of a get-together. Then, next slide. I showed all this picture because to convey that message, the teamwork will do wonders. The cochlear implantation program was a teamwork between the ENT surgeons, audiologists, speech therapists, administrators. All the teamwork will do wonders in any field, and the disability field is also not an exception to that law. Early detection, it can be done at community level, in a clinical level, hospital level, pediatrician, other medical specialists, rehabilitation professionals. But early intervention, it is a teamwork. Rehabilitation, it is a teamwork, plus community involvement is essential. In professional organization like Indian Academy of Pediatrics, NGO, corporate sector, LSTD, and many more can actively involve in the rehabilitation area, and the CSR, corporate social responsibility, also may contribute to various rehabilitation program in the disability sector. So that is about the early detection and early intervention. Thank you all for the patient hearing. If any clarification or doubt, I am very happy to answer that.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an elaborative session. I'm sure that everyone is benefited with this session. Very detailed one. Now people are more aware how even the changes in a look or in a gesture or in a posture of a newborn or a child, how significant it is. The issues even in the sucking of breast milk may be an early index for a spastic cerebral palsy in future. A constipation may be a heralding sign of a neurodevelopmental disorder, but not all. But you understood the thing. So we are so thankful to you, sir, for such a wonderful session. And I am also very much thankful to Tarika Roy ma'am for sparing her most valuable time all through the session. Ma'am was listening to the presentation, and we are so thankful to you, ma'am, for that. And I request you, ma'am, for any words from your ma'am, please.
No, I must thank you as well as Dr. Ashraf for such a detailed presentation, and I'm sure it would have been an eye-opener for many. I'm sure there are some questions which have also been raised in the chat box as has been given. And while this presentation was going on, and I thought that this would also help the people in our other sectors, I have written on the early intervention group and I've requested the NIPMED to take leadership in compiling all these videos and having a e-resource library for our early intervention so that they can be used by any of these centers. I'm sure the valuable inputs which are being captured through these webinar series during December and January across all the CRCs and the NIs would make a valuable resource which can be dipped into as and when required. So Nachiketa, you will have to take that leadership. And I thank once again Dr. Ashraf for giving such a detailed and doing full justice to the the seriousness which this topic deserves. I think it couldn't have been better sort of encapsulated in the 40 odd minutes that were put in. For the question answer session, I will have to leave because my meeting is already delayed and people are waiting outside my room. And I will have
definitely. Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam, for being with us.
It's my pleasure. And
Thank you.
so much. Thank you so much, both NIPMED as well as CRC Kozhikode for having taken this leadership and wonderful topics chosen for early intervention. I would request you to please mention in the groups, and all NIs and CRCs, I would request they should join for each other's webinars. This is the learning curve that we need. And the most important thing, which I also said, and it came out, I'm glad it also came out for me as a non-professional and from Dr. Ashraf as a professional in the field, that the two key elements here or three key elements here are the factor of awareness generation. If we don't create awareness, these centers will be of no use because we will not get the caseload and we will not be able to reduce the overall disability burden of the country and of the subset of the society and eventually of the family and then of the individual person. So that is one important thing. And the second is what Dr. Ashraf termed in several of his slides as the importance of the teamwork. I would say that teamwork is important also for resource pooling because there are such few, as I said, there is a sea of humanity out there which needs to be catered to. And with the little resources that we have, and if we don't break the silos of this medical and the rehab model, and we come together, as I had also mentioned, and I'm glad that Dr. Ashraf touched upon this point in his very lucid presentation, is that the doctors and pediatricians also value the therapeutic interventions which are consistently required and regularly required for doing constructive, sort of input, give constructive and a wholesome intervention as is required by the child. So and thirdly, the importance of the parents. It is for the mother to recognize and the mother to know who knows her child best, and they have to be taught as our resource persons. So with that, I will have to unfortunately not listen into the question answer session, but thank you all of you for listening in, those who are 107 that I see are still there. So all the best to all of you. Stay safe.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Wisdom. And there's one sentence which Ashraf sir told: early detection without early intervention is a mere wastage of resources. That is one catch which we have, and this is that liaison which we need to have between the medical fraternity as well as the rehabilitation fraternity, wherein the medical fraternity makes the diagnosis. Naturally, the medical fraternity is not the persons to do the sustained follow-up therapeutic interventions. So there comes the role of our rehabilitation professionals, and we need a bridge between these two fraternities, and that is exactly what we expect from our association with IAP, sir. So just a word on that.
Actually, Roshan, next year in Kerala State IAP has decided to take this program in the presidential action plan. That is early detection of the neurodevelopmental disabilities in children. So we need support of all of you, including the CRC and all other.
Yeah, that would be so nice, sir. Because once the diagnosis part, detection part is over, then those persons can very well be handed over to us, and
Yeah, definitely.
synergistically, we can have that sustained follow-up therapeutic intervention part, so that there is a holistic concerted effort from both the medical and rehab fraternities for the best benefit of the clients.
One of the major objective of that program is to melt the barriers between the doctors and the therapists.
Absolutely, sir. So that is a very nice initiative. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Madam Lady.
Heard as a leaders for that also, and I'm very glad for that. And moving on to the questions, Durga Prasad Mishra, occupational therapist, SP Nirdhar, he has asked two questions. One is, sir, there is a controversial topic regarding vaccines' role in many developmental disorders due to presence of thimerosal. Still, vaccination is essential to prevent many other disabilities like deaf blindness, etc. Then, what to be advised to parents? MMR is mostly controversial and many questions are raised on this. Is it recommended to avoid multivalent vaccines?
Yeah. Regarding the MMR, previously there was a controversy, which is about an article published in the Lancet journal. But later it was realized and confirmed that that study was a fake study. One doctor did that fake study for the sake of a company by accepting something from that company. And in the history of the Lancet journal, the only one article was withdrawn after the publication. That is this article about the adverse effects of the rubella. Actually, it is a fake study. But there was a huge propaganda about the rubella vaccine by using that article. It is not scientifically validated thing. Rubella is safe. It will not produce much thing. For another problem is, for anything, there may be a plus things and negative things. There may be brighter aspects and gray aspects. For the drugs, there may be adverse reaction. Even if the paracetamol, the vaccines are also not an exception for this basic rule. Everything. Some people will develop asthma after taking a Horlicks or after taking fish. So that problem is a general rule. But a vaccine will be licensed to use in human beings only after several phases of trials. So the Pentavac vaccine is also considered safe. There may be, even for polio vaccine, there may be a vaccine associated polio, but that is an acceptable risk when compared to the benefits given by the vaccine. The rubella, actually, the rubella vaccination will prevent multiple disabilities, from intellectual disabilities to hearing impairment, blindness, and congenital heart disease. In the photograph I showed at the end of this talk is a child with the congenital rubella syndrome who was undergone for cataract surgery, who was undergone for the patent ductus arteriosus cardiac surgery, and also undergone for the cochlear implantation in our program. The government spent around 10 lakhs for that child. But a vaccine, rubella vaccine, worth 70 rupees will prevent all these defects. That is the importance of the vaccination. So rubella is safe. The article published in the Lancet was a fake article, later withdrawn by the Lancet.
Thank you for that very clear response to that query, sir. And another question by Durga Prasad Mishra himself. Sir, can an early movement analysis help in early detection within 6 months of age?
Definitely, I have already stressed that point, that various movement abnormalities, usually a normal baby will make all sort of movements with the upper limb and lower limb. But if there is a positive movement in one side, if there is an asymmetry of movement, if there is a fixed posture, all can predict, all can consider as an early markers for the neurodevelopmental disabilities. You can note a movement abnormality even at 1 month or even at 2 months, because if the child is moving the not moving the left leg properly when compared to the right leg, it is an early marker. If the child is keeping the thumb or keeping the hand closed even after 3 months, it may be an early marker. So the analysis of the movement is very important to detect early.
Thank you, sir, for that clarification of that query. The floor is open for discussion. If anyone has got any other queries or doubts, you may kindly unmute yourself and ask the query directly to our resource person.
Thank you, Roshan.
Thank you, sir. Then I think we'll wind up this session with your kind permission, and Nachiketa, sir,
Yes,
President.
sir. Yes. We'll do it.
Shall we wind up, sir?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One more question is there in the chat box. Sir, while advising early intervention setup, is there any protocol and advisory as it seems to be too much clutter in environment? May distract a child while on intervention. That question is not very clear. So while advising early intervention setup, is there any protocol or advisory as it seen that too much clutter in environment may distract child? That's a good question. Actually, for the room, you should not keep many distractors in the room, including the pictures. It is better to avoid all this. Usually, for a pediatric consultation room, we will keep all that attracting points. But for the developmental assessment, it is better to keep away all these distractors. The therapist, mother, as well as the needed equipments and the child with the minimum furnitures. That is the advisable thing. That is the protocol. Sir, I think you will agree with me. Raut sir.
Yes, sir. Nachiketa sir is nodding his head because he always tells this.
100%. I'll just add up. You can have the lighting should be minimum of 300 lux.
Yeah.
And natural lighting is always.
Natural lighting is always better. Always better. So thank you for the.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ashok sir, for that wonderful session. Thank you, Nachiketa sir, for all the support.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Then
We'll wind it up. We'll log off. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ashraf. We'll meet sometime.
Yeah. Whenever you are in Calicut, please.
Sure, sir. Nachiketa sir is coming over to Calicut to our CRC, sir. Definitely we'll have a meeting, sir.
And we should be thanking Corona.
I will come and meet.
We should be thanking Corona that it enabled us to meet virtually. So we end with a thanking note to Corona. We'll take the best out of this particular situation. Okay, thank you.
Shall we also have some good aspects?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.